welcome to another video from everyone here at BlenderTech.com. If you enjoyed or learned something from the video, consider liking it and consider subscribing for more Blender, Unity 3D, coding, and all sorts of other CG related videos. Lastly, don't forget our motto, create your way. So when I posted a couple of video tracking little quick tips up, I had a lot of people asking me how to overlay 3D objects on top of live action footage, so I figured I might as well start on that. It will most likely be a multi-part tutorial as it's quite time intensive. So anyways, what I decided on is there is a website, what is it called? HollywoodCameraWork.com, and they have a bunch of green screen stuff and tracking plates that you can use for whatever you want. That basically it wasn't good enough for them in their professional work, and so you can use them for your own use. Now they've been around for years and I've seen quite a few YouTube tutorials use them. However, the one thing I haven't noticed is the people that use them haven't figured out what camera they use to record it, and they tell you right on the webpage what camera they're using, and it's actually a preset in Blender. It is the Panasonic HVX 200, quite a common camera in the mid to high end range video recording industry. That is going to make our work much easier because then we have the sensor details, we have the focal length details, and we don't need to guess, as I saw a lot of people doing, and some people came fairly close, but it's always good to have it perfect for sure. So anyways, let's load up a clip. I'm going to use the exact same one that most people use. It is this widescreen one. When you're going to open a clip in Blender, you can open a movie clip obviously, but if you have something that has a bunch of images, basically a rotoscope like this, as long as they're numbered in incremental order, Blender can open them all as a video clip just like that. And that's what all the clips from this website come as. So Blender combines them all into a video basically. So I'm just gonna prefetch. They called something stupid. Yeah, okay. Prefetch the frames by hitting P. It has 200 and some odd frames in this clip, I believe. Yeah, 215. So up to there. So it's gonna use quite a bit of RAM. Just over a gig. If you don't have enough RAM to prefetch all the frames, go into your preferences under system and the sequencer / clip editor. You wanna up your memory cache limit. Obviously it depends how much memory you have, but I imagine most systems nowadays have at least 4 gigs, so up that if you can't prefetch all the frames, because that makes moving through everything much smoother and quicker and easier. Anyways, as you can see, this footage is distorted. That's not quite as it originally came, or was originally intended to be anyway. We're working in 1080p, and the footage information is 1080p, but the X resolution is 1280, so that seems a little odd at first. That's because of the pixel aspect ratio, which they actually tell you to set to 1.5, which would undistort it basically. However, by just choosing the camera preset that they use, that puts everything right in there, all the details, the sensor width, the center we can hit, that's already good. It sets the lens focal length, and basically you're good to go, and the footage becomes undistorted. So we have the focal length set up already. We have the width set up. That's a huge time saver right there by having the camera preset in Blender. And so now everything's undistorted. It looks a lot more normal. And we have all these nice points that we can track. Now I would have preferred if they had used some black tape or white or something of higher contrast, but this is definitely workable with, and we can definitely get a low camera solve error and set up a actual scene. I was gonna start with a simple movie that had no movement in it, just to simply show you how to overlay a 3D object onto it, but I can go through this moving one and then just go through the basics, and I'm sure you guys can figure more out and I can add more details later. So as before, we're just gonna track a minimum of 8 targets. I'm gonna choose some on this wall, you could call it, choose some on the back, some on the floor, and go to town basically. So you guys know how to do this. You control click, you set your settings up first over here if you want it to be the same for every single track. I like to hit normalize because it normalizes all the light intensities, and then you control click on an area you want to track, and obviously this needs to be a little bit bigger, and you can choose a different channel to see what has the most contrast, because it actually tracks in grayscale. Like I said, I wish they used something with more contrast, but there's really not a lot of contrast either way. So yeah, green channel versus grayscale, about the same really. Anyway, so then you just track it, control T, and so it's going off the frame, so we will just leave that one as it is, and I'm just gonna basically continue on doing. I'm gonna track all of them just for the heck of it and get rid of the ones that suck later, and I'm gonna let Blender do its work. I'm not gonna do any manual tracking. I'm gonna have to set up a bigger pattern size for these, so I'm not resizing them manually. And again, there's plenty of space in between tracking markers here, so I'm not too worried about the search size. I don't want to get too much into the theory of how Blender tracks its points. There's lots of great documentation on the English and German documentation wiki, and the German one actually has lots of good English information, so give those a read if you're interested in the actual details. So I'm hitting Control T to track without having to hit the track buttons, just so you guys are aware. And then Control Shift down jumps you back to frame 1, 2. Although sometimes it's faster just to do your own scrubbing. That one jumped off. I am gonna get rid of that. Clear forward. And if you guys have ever wondered what this graph means, that's just your tracker's movement in X and Y, the X in red and the Y in yellow, the movement in X and Y. So you can see here there's a spike, so we would find out that would be track 13. So at frame, whatever frame that is, there's a spike in movement, so that would cause a slightly bigger camera solve error, so we would want to fix that up. But anyways, alright, that's everything tracked. Not the greatest tracks in the world, but I'm sure it will work. I'm just, Spike's bugging me on track 13. So we're just gonna grab this along the X and Y and kind of try to solve this. Good enough, I'm sure. Alright, so now we can try for a camera solve error going from frame 1 to 30. Nothing goes out of frame there. That one, actually that one does, but that's okay. And we will see what it comes up with using all of these. Since we already have our camera information, we will see how good it comes up. 1.3597, not bad at all. Not great, but definitely workable. I will definitely take that for a first attempt. And then this blue line it puts over here, I believe that's the average camera movement or something like it's something average. I can't remember the details for sure. I don't do a lot of tracking. Now we have all our track points, and beside them is their average track errors, and you can change it to or like that. Yeah, you can go from the lowest to highest track errors. So sometimes what I'll do if I have a high solve error like that, I'll get rid of the ones that have a high solve error, although they're usually the ones that consist of the whole clip very well and the ones that you don't want to get rid of. But yeah, no, I'll take a solve error of 1.3. That's not bad at all. But you can delete some really bad ones if you end up with them, and then clear your solution and then resolve, and you will obviously get a much better result at the expense of losing that track. Anyways, we now need to set up our scene. So a few ways to do that. You can set an origin point. We could take this point right here, for example, and call that the origin. We can take these 3 points. You want 3 points in a triangle shape, and we can call that the floor. We can take maybe these 3 and call them the wall. Yeah, that'll work for now. And then just hit setup tracking scene. And now we can go back to our default view, and you'll see it's put our tracking markers. I'll hide the cube and hide the cube in the ground for now. It's got all our tracking points here. Our camera's set up to move exactly like it is in the video. It's just inverted, as you can see, like that. So the easy way to fix that is just to rotate the actual camera till it roughly grid floor, sorry, kind of lines up with the video footage. Turn our cube and ground back on. Basically how these work now is Blender, when you hit setup tracking scene, it goes and it sets up this entire network of nodes, so that you have a foreground render layer and a background render layer, that and that, and then it allows you to put shadows from objects onto the actual footage. So I'm gonna resize this ground plane. I'm taking the cube with me, that's no problem. I'm gonna rotate it along the Z to try to get it lined up with the floor here. We'll take something like that, I don't know. I'm not going for perfection here. And this is older footage, and I didn't track this perfectly, but it'll work. Yeah, that's off in one of the axes for sure. It's hard to tell without really visual references. Anyways, you'll see if I grab this cube up here and just render this out now. It renders out your cube. It renders out the floor with the shadow, but that gets excluded from the final pass. Then it renders the frame out, and so you get a 3D object overlaid on top of your scene with the shadow on top of your scene. Now, obviously, you could go and go into the node editor under the compositor, and you could you could basically make a mask around the model here, and then you could actually overlay a real scene and do something like that. But people were wondering how to get a 3D object into a scene. Obviously, this isn't a high amount of realism, it's just a basic cube with no material, but that is the basics. So yeah, so at any time we could tab into our cube to edit it, we could delete it, we could add, say, Suzanne, and you would get the same result. And you could add materials or whatever. I wouldn't take this as a technical video or anything. This is basically me just bored at 5 in the morning and not able to sleep. So I'm just trying to ease some of the questions I'm getting daily in and out constantly about compositing 3D objects over live action. At any time, you can also hide the marks if they're getting in your way, and you'll notice that your camera is moving just like the real camera is, if that gives you some more information. And you can take any object and you can add a follow track constraint, and you can choose any track and it will follow that track just like it did when you tracked it. So kind of cool too if you want to match the movie's motion. So if you were to say track the person's arm or whatever at a certain point and it was moving, then you could use that to basically overlay the entire arm with a robot arm or whatever, or a skeleton arm or whatever you wanted to model out. But also, you don't really have to do the floor wall origin X and Y axis. You should be able to just hit setup tracking scene and then just rotate your camera to roughly line it up. As long as you set up the tracking scene, then you get the ground and your primary object, so that gives you the basics for creating some little overlays. Again, this isn't a fully technical video. I'm just showing where I've seen a lot of people make mistakes with this footage, where they were trying to guess as to the lens and camera data of of the scene, all the footage from Hollywood camera track or Hollywood camera, whatever. Um, but the fact that they're actually using the HVX 200 camera and the presets in Blender, so that will definitely make your camera solve a lot lower. So I'm going to leave that off there, and you guys can definitely play around with that. All this footage is free for downloading and playing with however you want. And yeah, I will make a much better video obviously when I have time. I've been slowly working on it. I just don't have great footage is the problem, and when I thought about using this footage, I said, nah, I could make something up quick with that. But anyways, that's a fairly quick one. Just trying to hopefully answer some of your guys' questions from the team here at BlenderTech.com. If you enjoyed this video to some degree, or maybe learned something and didn't ruin your knowledge, then consider liking it and consider subscribing for more videos. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/blender_tech and Facebook at facebook.com/blendertechpage. If you dislike this video for some reason, please leave a comment and tell us why so we can improve our videos based on your input. We also take requests and call for help. So anyways, see you next time, and remember, create your way.